Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Ali and here I just talk to myself about books and then someone, maybe you, may or may not watch this at a later date. Today I will be going through my very optimistic and ambitious March TBR. So let's get started. I have a bunch of books that I'd like to get through in March. I am being very ambitious, very optimistic with my reading capabilities. However, I do also have a week of annual leave in March, so I'm hoping that I can spend most days just reading and enjoying my time. So I'll just quickly go through all the books that I kind of like to get to during this month. First of all, I would like to read the entire Ember Quartet. So this is Ember in the Ashes, Torch Against the Night, A Reaper at the Gates, and Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. This is a Roman-inspired fantasy which follows Leia, who is a descendant of the scholars. She has been in hiding with her grandparents and brother following the death of her parents, who were part of a rebellion, and unfortunately her brother is arrested also for supposedly supporting the rebellion of the scholars, and ends up being taken away by the masks, who are like the military system within this world. She then decides to work with the rebellion to try and get her brother back. And we follow her as well as one of the mask characters. So it's kind of like a dual POV. There is occasionally like a third character POV that I won't get into too much because it does spoil it. So far I've read An Ember in the Ashes. Sorry, I should say that. But yeah, it's really good so far. The magic system is really interesting. It's not like really overt, but there is definitely obviously some magic in there. It is Roman inspired, but it also gives kind of more like Middle East vibes, I guess. Like there's things like gin and things like that as part of this. So yeah, it's interesting. I really want to finish this entire series. I also have Air by Sabaa Tahir, which is I think set a few years after the series but somewhat linked, although I don't think you have to read this before you read that, but I wanted to. So I do kind of want to get through this. I've had it since my birthday last year, so it's been a long time. It's time. Yeah, I feel like I haven't really explained it all. Let me just read the back of the beginning of The Ember in the Ashes, which is the first book. So, an orphan fighting for her family, a soldier searching for his freedom, a story burning to be told. Leia is a scholar living under the iron-fisted rule of the Martial Empire. When her brother is arrested in the dead of night for treason and her loved one slain, Leia must go undercover as a slave at the Empire's greatest military academy in exchange for assistance from those who claim that they can save her brother from execution. The Academy's finest soldier, Elias, secretly is most unwilling, but before he can act on the desertion he plans in his heart, he's ordered to participate in a ruthless contest to choose the next martial emperor. So it's really like fast-paced, there's loads of action. There is a subplot of romance, but it's not the main focus of the story, and there's just a lot of plot twists. Like as I said, I've read this one already so far and I've just not been able to put it down. Like, I want to just completely get through the series. We have another book in a series that I've already started, and that is Storm Glass by Maria V. Snyder. So this is the fourth book in the Poison Study series. It's a little bit confusing because you've got the initial trilogy, which is like Poison Study, Magic Study, and Fire Study, and then there is another 3 books that follow that same sort of like title. But then in between there's another trilogy, so this trilogy starting with Storm Glass, and I spoke to the Waterstones bookseller who recommended the series in the first place, and she gave me a list of how they should be read, and she recommended that I read this before I move on to the next kind of study trilogy. So yeah, I've really enjoyed so far the whole Poison Study trilogy and stuff, so I'm very much looking forward to continuing. It's been a little while since I have followed it. I think I finished it the initial trilogy I finished last year, and then I've just been dragging my feet picking up the next one, but I'm very much ready to get back into this. Poison Study follows the tale of Yelena, who is arrested for murdering the son of a general, and she is facing the ultimate punishment, which is execution. However, on the day of her execution, she is offered a choice to go ahead with that or to become the poison taster for the leader of the army empire. I can't remember what their name is. Commander, I think. So obviously facing either death or potential death from poison tasting, she decides to do that. And so she starts working with Valak, who is kind of the right-hand man of the commander, and teaches her how to like poison taste, etc. However, there is a lot going on within this empire that kind of is more than meets the eye. So as they start working together, they discover a few different sinister things going on. There is like planned coups, etc., and they start working together to try and figure out what's happening and kind of save themselves as well as their friends. There's definitely elements of like found family within that, which I love. The magic system's really interesting, the world's really interesting, the romance subplot's really good, and yeah, I've just really loved that series so far, so I'm very much excited to pick this up. I do think that this follows different characters, and is potentially a little bit removed from Yelena and Valak. And then, as I said, this trilogy kind of breaks up the study series, and then there's another 3 books that I think then go back to Yelena and Valak. So yeah, I'm interested to see how we go. Okay, next we have a book club book. As I've said, I do have a little mini book club with a couple of my friends from work, and we decided this month to read If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. This is about 4 Korean women in Seoul, and kind of follows their lives. It's like a slice of life book, and they are all kind of related to one another, as in they all know each other in some way. However, they have very different lives, and it kind of follows the impact of like Korean society, its beauty standards, and also the expectations, particularly on women, and kind of how that changes their lives and impacts their lives. So I'll just quickly read who the characters that we follow, because it is a multi-POV book. So we follow Curie, who is a beautiful room salon girl paid to entertain wealthy businessmen after hours. Miho, an artist whose life becomes enmeshed with the offspring of the super wealthy elite. Ara, a hairstylist whose obsession with a K-pop star leads her to violent extremes. And Wanna, the neighbour, pregnant with a child that she can't afford. So yeah, slice of life. Hoping it'll be really interesting. And yeah, we like to read books written by women, especially like different cultures, etc. So I'll be interested to see how we find this one. So I am also part of a Waterstones book club at my local Waterstones. However, I joined kind of quite late within one of their I think I joined like the week before they were due to meet, so I didn't have time to read one of the books that they had read. However, when they were talking about it, it sounded really good, so I decided to pick it up anyway, and that is The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey. I don't actually know a lot about this book, even though obviously they were talking about it, so I kind of know some of the endings and some of the plot points. So I decided not to really read too much more into it, because I'd like to save a little bit of blindness for it. But I believe this follows a couple of children, so I think the main character's a child, and it's kind of all happening, I think, in like the 1970s, 1980s Yorkshire, around the time of like the Yorkshire Ripper murders, and I think it's just kind of like telling that tale through the eyes of like children. So yeah, it sounds really good. They all gave it really, really good reviews. They all like adored it, and on Goodreads this also has a very good rating, so I'm excited to get into it, and it'll be like a bit of a different genre for me, so I'm interested to see how I find it. For that same book club, the next book club book that we will be reading is Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. This is my very old edition from the year it was released in 2003, I believe, and I found out that it's actually signed by the author, which I was very excited about. So yeah, this is very well loved. I have read it so many times. Decided to pick out this one because the genre for the month for the book club, so there's like a little genre wheel that spins, was your favorite book that you read as a child, and this is one of my favorites, and we ended up picking this one. So everyone gets to pick out an option and then you kind of like vote, and this is the one that won. I'm very excited to read this. I know Cornelia Funk is actually coming out with a 4th book, so I do have the other 2 as well, and I would like to just reread all 3 before reading the 4th one, the new release. I will quickly read, because it's been a few years since I have read this, but there's also a movie which you can watch, which is great. So this is a children's book, as I said, however it's very worth reading, so like middle grade I'd say. So Meggie loves books, so does her father Mo, a bookbinder, although he's never read aloud to her since her mother mysteriously disappeared. They live quietly until the night a stranger arrives with a warning. The next day Mo starts packing but won't tell Meggie why. They must go into hiding, but from what? From whom? Soon, Mo's secret is revealed. He has the amazing ability to breathe life into stories, to make characters come alive. Years ago, he accidentally released a merciless villain from a book called Inkheart, and now this hateful criminal is after Mo and his extraordinary gift. So, I loved this. I've always loved books about books, and this does a really good job of kind of like explaining the setting of like working in a bookbinding shop, but also literally the entire storyline is about like book characters that have come alive. So it's just such a good book, and if you haven't read this, I really recommend it. I know that I'm an adult now, but I don't care. It's still a good book, and partially yes, it is nostalgia, but it is still good, and I would highly recommend reading it if you're fancying something a little bit middle grade. This one is a random one I've picked up that I have read very little about, but I've only heard good reviews about. However, I do want to go into it fairly blind, just because I don't know, I feel like a lot of the other books I already either know or kind of have heard about a lot in depth, so I'd like to keep one blind. But anyway, that is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I've only heard great things about Grady Hendrix's writing, so I've been very excited to get into his books. I have the Witchcraft for Wayward Girls as well to read, but I wanted to start with one of his older titles. I will quickly read the blurb because that is all I wish to know about it, so I haven't looked any more into it. So Patricia Campbell's life has never felt smaller. Her husband is a workaholic, her teenage kids have their own lives, her senile mother-in-law needs constant care, and she's always a step behind on her endless to-do list. The only thing keeping her sane is her book club, a close-knit group of Charleston women and united by the love of true crime. Then James Harris walks into her life during the summer of 1993. He makes her feel things she hasn't felt in years. But when children on the other side of town go missing, Patricia wonders if he's connected. Is he a Brad Pitt, a Bundy, or something much worse? Again, a book about books, and also just like a little bit of, I think it's meant to be kind of like a fun take on horror. So, you know, very like 80s vibes. I know set in the 90s, but like 80s, 90s vibes. So Grady Hendrix also wrote My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I really want to read as well, which gives like Stranger Things vibes. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this. And yeah, I'd like to read this during my annual leave. So see how we go. I say last but not least, but I have a very long pile of books, so I think, you know, this is enough. We have Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. I have raved and ranted about M.L. Wang's writing so many times. Sword of Kaigen's one of my favourite books. and this is the newest traditionally published, because I didn't have a chance to pick it up when it was still being indie published, books by Emma Wang. And this is a dark academia with a touch of fantasy, I believe, and I will quickly read the blurb for this one as well. So Siona has devoted every waking moment to the study of magic, fueled by a mad desire to achieve the impossible. Be the first woman ever admitted to the High Magistracy at the University of Magics and Industry. When Siona finally passes the qualifying exam and becomes a High Mage, she finds the challenges have just begun. Her new colleagues are determined to make her feel unwelcome, and instead of a qualified lab assistant, they give her a janitor. What neither Siona nor her peers realise is that the taciturn assistant was not always a janitor. 10 years ago, he was a nomadic hunter who lost his family on the perilous journey from the wild plains to the city. But now he sees the opportunity to understand the forces that decimated his tribe, drove him from his homeland, and keep the privileged in power. At first, Mage and outsider have a fractious relationship, but working together, they uncover an ancient secret that could change the course of magic forever if it doesn't get them killed first. I mean, say less. Say less. Of course I will read this. I love Dark Academia. I love Emma Wang. Yeah. So again, definitely want to get through this in March. Okay, so as I said, it was a very ambitious TBR. I'm hoping I at least get to read like 80% of it, if not all of it. I might also like end up peppering in some other books, because I am predominantly a mood reader, and whilst I do always try and get through my TBR, sometimes my mood takes me away to other books. So we'll see how we go, and I guess I'll see you in a month for the wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, please pop a like. If you want to see more, do subscribe, and I'll see you soon.